Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. It's a Friday, and I thought we'd try something a little bit different. We've been focusing a lot of depressing subjects lately, and once in a while we need to let our hair down and have a little bit of fun. So this is going to be the What the Friday section. Just to avoid any copyright infringements, as far as I know, I'm making that up, but at the same token, I'm not laying claim to it. So that might come up to change another time. But this is just some interesting factoids and things that I've found while running around the internet, doing the research that I do. I was looking at Boeing in particular. Take a nice brand new Dreamliner, even the 777, any of their airplanes. To walk away with one, it's going to cost you $250 million. That's right, between $250 and $300 million to get a plane. I think that sounds like a pretty good deal. Those are some luxury airliners we're talking about. And they're customizable. You can rearrange the seats. You can change it around. But there's one interesting thing that these planes don't come with. Engines. Yeah. Most airlines in this world lease their engines. So while Boeing is going around saying that, oh yeah, this 787 is designed that it has, 200,000 kilograms worth of thrust and it goes this height and everything. That's if you use their factory recommended engine. But the airlines know they can get a better deal from Pratt & Whitney or General Electric or any of the other places that manufacture turbofans. So the airline makes the choice to buy the airframe and lease the engine. This is kind of silly when you think about it. I mean, would you buy a car and then the salesman says, okay, great, what engine would you want to put in it? Well, we can lease that to you for a monthly payment. That's essentially what airlines are doing. Now, in major air hubs, if you're doing like Toronto, Montreal, or Atlanta, Chicago, stuff like that, this agreement makes a lot of sense because Pratt & Whitney, General Electric, whoever it is going to have a, quote, dealership, end quote, on premises. So they can look at your engine, say whether it needs to be replaced or swap it out, because that's the nice thing about these big pods underneath engines, is they can swap them out pretty easily. And it also really saves money on labor costs. But just imagine that. Next time you're out there going about and, on your airplane, going wherever it is, hopefully wherever you want very soon, you're flying on engines that aren't even owned by the company that owns the airline. A little bit scary, but hey, interesting little fact. The airlines own the airplane, but not the engines. Another interesting little fact. Went on Rothman, Benson, and Hedges website. For those of you who don't know, Rothman's, Benson, and Hedges is a tobacco producing company. I was wondering how they're positioning themselves. Because, there's a huge anti-smoking lobby in the world. There's all sorts of people that are coming out against it. There's almost nowhere you can smoke. They've always been trying to pass legislation about smoking in cars with children, which I'm kind of not sure about. I mean, yes, I appreciate the spirit of the law, but I mean, cops have enough stuff to pull people over for, and now they're going to be able to bust you for the car smelling of cigarettes when you got a kid there. I mean, it's one of those fuzzy areas of the law I don't want to get into because it's very difficult for a judge to say yes, no, maybe so. That aside, Rothman, Benson, and Hedges, on their website, they're proudly proclaiming, we intend to eliminate smoking by 2030. Well, it's 2021, so in 9 years, you want to eliminate your primary product. So I did a little more digging, because that's what Silverlight does. He's never happy with the first answer. He always goes for the second or the third answer. And you know what I found? They're actually serious. They're committed to eliminating smoking. But that's because they're committing themselves to vaping. Oh, yes. So they're substituting one product out and putting another one in, getting the same crap. I mean, you can still buy vaping cartridges with cigarette smoke in them, and it's supposedly, quote, healthier, end quote, for you, but there's no long-term studies or anything for that. So while Rothmans, Benson, and Hedges is sitting there proudly proclaiming how they are not going to be promoting smoking anymore, they're still putting chemicals in your system. It's just change of delivery. It's not smoking, it's vaping. And then I started to wonder, where do they get their product from? Now, years and years ago, I used to be part of a company. We had a contract where we basically worked at, well, one of our offices was in Delhi, Ontario. And in Delhi, Ontario, they do a lot of tobacco farming. So I said, over the years, with the non-smoking legislation the way it is, I wonder how they're doing. Turns out, for farmers, surprisingly well. Tobacco farming is subsidized by the Ontario and the Canadian government. That's right. It's actually subsidized so much, it's more profitable for a farmer to grow tobacco than it is any other plant. Again, we're here in this non-smoking era where people still do smoke. Again, there's that 10-20% of people, it doesn't matter what, they're going to smoke when they've got an oxygen tank next to them. I've seen it happen. It's ridiculous, but at the same token, people are free to do with their bodies what they want. That being said, you would think a government that was in the middle of this massive anti-smoking campaign, supposedly for public health, they would be getting rid of smoking altogether. The truth is, they are kind of. You see, again, Rothman, Benson, and Hedges is committing in 2030 there's no longer going to be tobacco in cigarette form. And Canada, despite the fact that they're putting billions of dollars into Southern Ontario in particular, not the rest of the country, just Southern Ontario, so that we can grow tobacco, which is supposed to be eliminated, or at least delivered in a different form. Well, there's a reason for that. There is a giant market that has just opened up that all wants Ontario cigarettes. And you know where that market is? China. So while we're importing electronics and other goods from them, we're sending them tobacco. Now, we still have a trade deficit, but ultimately it's kind of weird that the government would subsidize tobacco farming just solely so that we could send it to China. I mean, China's a bad example to use here. Pretty much anywhere is a bad example to use here because every country dumps their products on another market. They keep the best stuff for themselves and they send the other stuff elsewhere. And yes, Canada will still have a cigarette manufacturing industry. We're still going to be importing like Cuban cigars and Dominican cigars and stuff like that. But we're sending our tobacco across the Pacific Ocean to China. And I'm sure Vietnam, Laos, Korea, all those other places are enjoying it too. China doesn't seem to have much of an anti-smoking policy. So again, we have a very specific, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic product that we're not going to use ourselves. No, we'll send it somewhere else. It's kind of the opposite of what the government's been doing in most cases. Like the coke mines and stuff like that. And I don't mean cocaine. I mean, when they were producing coal and ash and all that sort of stuff in Nova Scotia, it would produce coke as a leftover. That's what it's called. And it's poisoned the environment. For once, we're shipping the poison somewhere else. I'm undecided whether I want government money to go to subsidize this. And let me state one thing for sure. Farmers, whether they're making tobacco, corn, apples, whatever it is, generally speaking, are not rich. You want to become a farmer? Fantastic. First, you have to buy your acreage or lease it or however you get a hold of the acreage. Then you have to have seeds to plant. That's an expensive process, and you have to buy a machine to plant them. Now, let's assume that you're incredibly thrifty, you're incredibly resourceful, and you can get an all-in-one machine, combine, harvester, seed planter, etc. Looked up the prices for that the other day. Again, you're looking at about 450,000 minimum. That's $500,000, and that's just for the machine. No add-ons, no extras, no training how to use it. So a farmer basically has to mortgage their property before they even get started planting. That's assuming that they can get seeds at a relatively cheap price. I have no idea how much it costs per acre to buy seeds. And I have no idea what the runtime and everything is to keep one of those combines going. And sooner or later, you're going to have to harvest your crop, etc., etc. So, do farmers need subsidies? Hell yeah. I mean, it's a really difficult life. Financially, physically, it's stress all around. Like, no wonder you see these people being salt of the earth, because they have nothing. Literally, at the end of the day, if they have enough to pay their bills, they're happy. I've been to a couple of farms in my life. Unless they're boutique, small market farms, which are what is called artesian farms, where they can charge a premium, they're not ridiculously wealthy people. They have a bottle of Coke, and that's for the whole table. Whereas here in the city, we have 24 cans of Coke, and we think that's not enough for a party. Just a personal example thrown in there. But farmers, the backbone of our economy, are subsidized for growing tobacco. Not apples, not potatoes. Nothing in the grocery store gets anywhere near the subsidies they do for tobacco. So we have covered in the past little bit airplane engines being rented, tobacco industry switching, well, basically playing that hide the pea game. Which shell is it under? Because they're not going to produce cigarettes anymore. They're going to stop smoking, but vaping's absolutely okay with them. And we all know the hipster trend towards vaping these days. And finally, farmers get the real short end of the stick no matter which way you give it. Even the richest tobacco farmers are not living in lives of luxury. They're not having lobster and caviar every night. Aside from a very few who either get really lucky or that sort of thing. But you can't consider the 10% in relation to the 90%. In short, this has been a quick hit kind of episode, a quick all the weird things happening Friday. Relatively light, because there's enough horrible stuff going on in the world. I thought an easy day might be the best for everybody. So, thank you for tuning in for the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed this show, please like, share, and subscribe. And we hope you have a fantastic day.